Hello friends, today we are going to talk about pharmacodynamics. So pharmacodynamics, it covers all aspects related to what the drug does to the body. It is the study of drugs, their mechanism of action, pharmacological action and adverse effects. So we can say the study of biochemical and physiological effect of drugs and their mechanism of action is known as pharmacodynamics. Let us see the example. You all know that aspirin. Aspirin is used for analgesic and antipyretic purpose. So, whenever aspirin is given inside the body, what is its mechanism is it inhibits the cyclooxygenase enzyme, and by inhibiting this enzyme, it inhibits the prostaglandin synthesis and thus it produces its analgesic and antipyretic effect. So this is the pharmacodynamic aspect of the drug that we know. Different drugs have different mode of action. So these are some principal drug action. The first one is stimulation. Few drugs they selectively enhance the specialized organs and cells. So if you see the example that adrenaline selectively stimulates the heart, pilocarpine stimulates the salivary gland. Same way, some drugs they selectively inhibits the activity of some organs and cells like say barbiturate they selectively depresses the CNS. Quinidine depresses the heart. Irritation, what they do is they have non-selective and often the noxious effect when they apply to some less specialized cells like epithelium, connective tissue, and this stimulates the associated function. If you see the example, some beetles, they irritate the cells of salivary and gastric glands and causes the secretion from this gland. Counter irritants, when applied, they increases the blood flow to a site by irritation. Replacement, the name itself suggests that it replaces. So here the use of natural metabolites, hormones and their congener whenever there is a deficiency of themselves in the body. So in the Parkinsonism there is deficiency of dopamine. So we give levodopa which converted into the dopamine and replace the dopamine in the deficiency. Whenever there is anemia, there is iron deficiency in anemia specifically, we give iron to replace cytotoxic action. Some drugs they selectively cause cytotoxic action for invading parasites or cancer cells, like say penicillin, chloroquine. They are antibiotics, so they are given in infections, different type of infections caused by some bacteria or we can say organism, as well as in the malignancies also some anti-cancer drugs they are given which can produce cytotoxic actions. Now different drugs they act by different actions. That how this drug acts. The drug that act by one of the mode of action is physical action. So here you can see either they act by osmotic activity like say mannitol and magnesium sulfate. They exert their action by osmotic effect. Right? So here we are talking about mannitol. So 20% mannitol is used in cerebral edema as well as in the acute congestive glaucoma. Adsorption. Activated charcoal, whenever there is an drug poisoning is there, we give activated charcoal orally. What it do is it physically binds or we can say adsorb the poison and prevents its absorption further. Some drug act by soothing and demulcent effect like say cough syrup and melamine lotion in eczema. uh, Act by radioactivity, that is radioactive isoform, that is 131 iodine. Some drug produces radio opacity like say we can say we are using contrast media like say barium sulfate. And other drugs which produces or work by their physical action is color, taste, smell, mass, electrical charge, etc. Some drugs that work by chemical action, like say antacids, what they do is they neutralizes the gastric hydrochloric acid, and they are helpful in treatment of peptic ulcer. Acidifying and alkalizing agents they alter the urinary pH and useful in either acidic drug poisoning or basic drug poisoning. Oxidizing agent like say potassium permanganate, iodine. Potassium permanganate specifically can be used in some drug poisoning as well as they can be used for as a germicidal and germicidal agent. Chelating agents like say penicillamine, they are useful because they sequester the toxic metal by chemical action and helpful in drug poisoning cases. Now we talk about the different targets of drug action. Which one is enzyme, then different ion channels, transporters, and most important are drug receptors. Here we can see the drugs, they are acting through the enzymes. The enzymes, they bind with the substrate and they make the enzyme substrate complex, and the reaction and product is enzyme is free and product is, or we can say action is produced. Drugs can cause two type of inhibition of different enzymes. The first one is either they act non-specifically binding to the different enzymes and causing denaturation of proteins like say strong acids, heavy metals, alkalis, alcohol and phenols. They bind with the enzymes in the body and causes denaturation. While some of the drugs they specifically binding to the specific enzyme and causes competitive inhibition of enzymes, either non-competitive inhibition of enzymes. Here you can see the enzyme. Here it is an enzyme. There is a catalytic site is there on the enzyme. So our substrate, or we can say drug, it binds to the catalytic site of the enzyme and causes competitive inhibition. So here the drug is competing with the substrate that is present in the body, right? So drug competes with the substrate to bind with the catalytic site on the enzyme and causes competitive inhibition. So here is the example that cholinesterase enzyme is there in the body. So usually an acetylcholine binds with this enzyme, but physostigmine, whenever given from the outside, it competes with the acetylcholine to bind with choline esterase and causes competitive inhibition. Now, on the enzyme, as we have talked, that catalytic site is there. Another site is there which is non-catalytic, or that is, or we can say allosteric site is there. Our drug binds with this non-catalytic site and causes enzyme inhibition by either we can say physiological modification, or here after binding with this non-catalytic site the enzyme loses its catalytic property and the inhibition is seen, and it is known as non-competitive inhibition of enzymes. Here aspirin inhibits the cyclooxygenase enzyme non-competitively. So these are competitive inhibitors, that is allopurinol inhibits xanthine oxidase and physostigmine inhibits choline esterase. And non-competitive inhibitor, that is aspirin, causes inhibition of cyclooxygenase, and omeprazole causes inhibition of H plus K plus ATPase. Ion channels, they are usually proteins which take part in transmembrane signaling and regulating the ionic composition. Drugs also target these channels mainly on three types, that is ligand-gated ion channels, G protein operated channels, and there is a direct action on channels. If we see the examples of each, that is ligand-gated ion channels, then the benzodiazepine opens the ligand-gated GABA chloride channel, while histamine, which binds to the G protein coupled receptors and activates G protein, and local anesthetic agents, they act directly, means they directly blocks the channel. So many drugs modulate opening and closing of these channels. Here you can see some examples are nifedipine, that is a calcium channel blocker, and nicorandil, which is an potassium channel opener. So here you can see the GABA receptor channel complex. So different drugs, they bind to this channel complex, and then they can alter the flow of the particular ion. Here the ion that flow in is chloride ion. Local anesthetic agents, they are acting on sodium ion channels, and they alter the flow of sodium ion. Now, the third target of drug action is transporter. So, some drug produces their effect by binding to the transporters. The selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that is fluoxetine, it blocks the serotonin transporter and produces antidepressant effect. Here you can see this is the transporter, substrate binds and it is released with help of transporter inside. So substrates are translocated across membrane by binding to specific transporters, or we can say carriers, are also known as solute carrier proteins. These solute carrier proteins, they pump the metabolites or ions in the direction of concentration gradient or against it. So drugs can interact with this transport system. We can see various examples like say furosemide, which is a diuretic drug. It inhibits the sodium potassium 2 chloride co-transport. While vesamicol, it is a drug which causes active transport of acetylcholine to the vesicles. Thiazide, which is another diuretic which blocks the sodium chloride symporter. So there are so many examples are there. So here you can see in the ascending limb of Leupophile, there is a transport mechanism, that is sodium potassium chloride transporter is there, which is blocked by furosemide, which is a loop diuretic. Here sodium, potassium and chloride ion flows inside with help of this transporter, and our drug furosemide inhibits this ion transporter. So we have talked about the three targets, that is enzyme, ion channels and transporters. Now the important thing is receptor. So receptors, they are macromolecule, they are located on the surface or inside the cells. What they do is they serve to recognize the drug and initiate the response to the drug. So here you can see the drug binds to the receptor. Either it is on the cell surface, or it is in the cytoplasm, or it is in. Now let us see some terminologies related to receptor mediated mechanism. So first is ligand. Ligand is a molecule which attaches selectively to particular receptor or site. Here the molecule which binds to the receptor or site is drug. You can also say it ligand, right? Then the term is affinity. So affinity is ability to combine with the receptor and attraction of a ligand for a receptor. So, it is drug's ability to combine with the receptor is known as affinity. So, the drug having high affinity, it needs only low concentration to bind. Or a drug having low affinity, it needs higher concentration to bind with the receptor. If the drug or ligand has no affinity for the receptors, there will be no binding, right? So now intrinsic activity, or we can say efficacy, which is an important term to be remember, that after the drug having ability to combine with the receptor, additionally it has to be a ability to activate the receptor, right, after receptor occupation. So that is known as efficacy. So ability of drug to produce a drug action by activating the receptor is known as intrinsic activity or efficacy. Now, agonist. Agonist, they have a affinity for the receptor and having maximal intrinsic activity, that is +1. So agonist is, it activates a receptor to produce an effect which is similar to that of physiological signal molecules. So examples are adrenaline and histamine. In simple word, we can say a drug that is capable of producing pharmacological action after binding to the receptor is called affinity, is called an agonist. Antagonists, they have affinity but they do not have intrinsic activity. So their intrinsic activity is zero. They prevent the action of an agonist on a receptor but does not have any effect of its own. Examples are propranolol and meperamine. So we can say a drug that prevents the binding of agonist to its receptors and blocks its effect is known as antagonist. They do not produce any effect of their own. Then uh, here we can say that the competitive antagonists, they have a high affinity without intrinsic activity. The examples are naloxone and atropine, and they produces the receptor blockade. Now the term is partial agonist. So a drug that binds to the receptor but produces an effect less than that of agonist is known as partial agonist. They have affinity but the intrinsic activity is sub-maximal. So that is between 0 to 1. So the example is a drug like say nalorphine. It antagonizes the action of an full agonist. Inverse agonist, it has affinity but the intrinsic activity is with a minus sign, so that is -1. It has full affinity towards the receptors but produces effect that of opposite to an agonist. So if we talk about the benzodiazepine, they produce anti-anxiety and anti-conversion effect by interacting with the benzodiazepine receptor. But the beta-carbolin acts as an inverse agonist at benzodiazepine receptor and produces anxiety and conversion. Different receptor families. We have talked about the receptor. Now, different receptor families are there. So for here, 4 receptor families are there. That is G protein coupled receptors, ligand-gated ion channels, enzymatic receptors, and receptors regulating gene expression. Now, G protein coupled receptors. G protein coupled receptors. They are coupled to intracellular effectors through G proteins. They are membrane proteins and have 3 subunits, that is alpha, beta, and gamma, with GDP bound to alpha subunits. They are transmembrane receptors which controls the cell function via different second messenger signals. G protein coupled receptors, they are 7 transmembrane alpha helical structure. Here, these transmembrane receptors, they control the cell function via adenyl cyclase, phospholipase C, ion channels, etc. So here on this 7 transmembrane structure, there are agonistic binding sites are there, as well as that is G protein binding site is also there. These G proteins, they are membrane proteins and they have 3 subunits, that is alpha, beta and gamma, with GDP bound to a subunit, alpha subunit. Here you can see this is receptor at the resting stage, where alpha, beta and gamma subunits, they are combined with the GDP. When receptor is occupied with the agonist, here the GDP is exchanged with the GTP, and alpha GDP and beta gamma subunits, they are got separated and they binds with their targets individually and have their action. So when their action is completed, again the GTP converted to GDP and the receptor again, this alpha beta gamma subunits again combines and the receptor goes into the resting state. The effect, so simply agonist binds to the G protein coupled receptor and causes G protein activation, and G protein activated binds to the different targets and produces cellular response. Now, the effect that are produced, that depends on the type of G protein which associate with the agonist occupied receptor. Now, the G alpha subunits are of different types. That is, either it is having GS, that is G type is stimulatory, GI or GQ. The GS protein that leads to adenyl cyclase activation. The GI causes adenyl cyclase inhibition. GQ causes phospholipase C activation. And beta and gamma subunits, they causes enzymes and ion channel stimulation or inhibition. Now, if we talk about the targets of G protein, or we can say second messengers, then the first is adenyl cyclase, cyclic AMP pathway. Here we know that ATP is converted into cyclic AMP with help of adenyl cyclase enzyme. And this increased cyclic AMP causes activation of protein kinase A, which is responsible for alteration of cellular function. The second target is phospholipase C IP3DAG pathway. So phosphatidyl inositol biphosphate is stimulated by GQ protein, and it is converted into IP3, that is inositol triphosphate and diacyl glycerol. And they in turn causes release of calcium from the intracellular stores IP3 and stimulation of protein kinase C by diacyl glycerol. And the third one is the ion channels as targets for G proteins. So activated G proteins can affect the calcium channels and potassium channel, and this does not involve cyclic AMP or IP3DAG pathway. So we can see the examples of G protein coupled receptor. There are so many, that is muscarinic receptors are there, adrenergic receptors are there, and many more. Now, ion channel receptors, or we can say ligand gated ion channels, or another term is here ion channel receptors, that is the second receptor family. The another term is ionotropic receptors or ligand gated ion channels. The examples are nicotinic receptors and GABA A receptors. Here you can see this is a nicotinic receptor having different subunits alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and there is a pore in between which allows a ion to flow inside the cell. So binding of agonist here, the acetylcholine, to the receptor opens the ion channels and allows the flow of ion through the channel, which causes, depending upon the ion, either hyperpolarization or depolarization, and ultimately produces the tissue response. The onset of action of drug is a fast rate, or we can say within milliseconds through these receptors. Now, enzyme link receptors. Enzyme link receptors, or we can say kinase link receptors, these receptors are directly linked to the tyrosine kinase or to guanylyl cyclase. These are receptors that are ligand activated transmembrane enzyme having catalytic activity. So when the agonist binding site is there outside, so when agonist binds, there is a structural modification, agonist binding to this extracellular domain of this receptor produces a conformational change, and which results in the dimerization, which is followed by autophosphorylation of the tyrosine residues in the intracellular tyrosine binding domain. And these phosphorylated tyrosine residues causes activation of intracellular signaling pathways, which lead to gene transcription and tissue response. The examples are insulin and growth factors, which are enzyme link receptors. And the last receptor family is receptors which are regulating gene expression. Receptors regulating gene expression. Here, the receptors either may be present in the cytosol or in the nucleus itself. So, agonist will bind to the receptor either in the cytosol or nucleus, and they either transactivate or transrepress the genes by binding to the positive or negative responsive elements on the DNA, and causes there is change in the desired protein expression. Here we can see the example, that is glucocorticoids. So glucocorticoids, they are cytosolic receptors, having cytosolic receptors. So whenever glucocorticoid is given, it binds to the glucocorticoid receptors which are present in the cytosol, and binding of this receptor with the agonist removes the heat shock proteins which are attached and causes receptor activation. So when receptor gets activated, they makes the homodimers, which shifts inside the nucleus, and these dimers transactivate or transrepress the genes by binding to the positive or negative glucocorticoid response elements. And this they do by recruiting some co-activators or co-repressors. An alteration in the gene transcription leads to a change, either it is up or down, in the desired protein expression. See, because gene transcription is relatively a slow and long-lasting process, the drug that target these receptors often require a longer period of time for the onset of action, and slow, longer-lasting effects than drugs that act by the ion channels, which are acting in the millisecond, or through GPCR that acts for few seconds to minutes. So if you see the example that I have said, that they are present either in the nucleus or in the cytoplasm. So glucocorticoid receptors are present in the cytoplasm, while thyroid hormone receptors, they are present in the nucleus. So we have seen the types of receptors. Dose response relationship. Pharmacological effect of a drug depends on its concentration at the site of action, which in turn is determined by the dose of the drug administered. So such a relationship is called as dose response relationship. So there are two types of dose response curves there, that is graded dose response curve. Here, these curves, when plotted on a graph, it takes the form of rectangular hyperbola. Here you can see the dose which are given here is, that is in the increasing dose, and with increasing dose the response is measured and plotted on the graph here. So that it is a rectangular hyperbola. It is known as dose response curve, or we can say graded dose response curve. If we convert the doses, that is we plotted in the graded dose response curve into the log dose, and again plot the graph, the shape of the curve will be S shape, that is sigmoid shape, and this is known as log dose response curve. So that are certain advantages of this log dose response curve is there. Here you can see the portion of the shape, that is here from the 30 to 70% is linear. Yes. So this linear shape of the curve gives advantage that you can compare the different agonists response, as well as the study of antagonists becomes easier, as well as you can plot a larger range of the doses in a one graph paper. Again, wide range of doses can be displayed, and comparison between agonist and study of antagonist becomes easier with the log dose response curve. Drug potency. Potency is amount of drug needed to produce a certain response. So when we are saying that this drug is more potent than the other drug, we are comparing, so that for that the amount of drug which is needed to produce the same response. And drug efficacy is the maximum response that is elicited by certain drug. So clinically, what is important is drug efficacy, then potency. And the drug efficacy is noted by the dose response curve upper limit. So if you say the example, pethidine is less potent but equally efficacious analgesic as morphine, means the amount of drug or amount of pethidine to produce the same analgesic effect like morphine is required more as compared to the morphine. So it is less potent. But the efficacy, same analgesia is produced as with morphine. Now, therapeutic index. Therapeutic index gives a safety of about the safety of using the drug, and it is usually measured in animals. So therapeutic index is a ratio of median lethal dose LD50 upon median effective dose when it is applied into the experimental animal. So LD50 is a dose which kills 50% of the experimental animals, and ED50 is a dose which produces the specified effect in the 50% of the animals. So it gives you the idea about the safety. You can remember TIIL, TIL, therapeutic index, LD50 upon ED50. In humans, the same term therapeutic index, we can say it is therapeutic range. So therapeutic range is the ratio, or we can say the range between the minimal therapeutic effect and maximal acceptable adverse effect. Here, the log dose response curve of the two, the same drug. Here, its therapeutic effect DRC is like log dose response curve is plotted, and the log dose response curve is plotted for their adverse effect. Okay, so Therapeutic range is the dose at which the minimal therapeutic effect is produced, and the dose at which maximal acceptable adverse effect is produced. That is known as therapeutic range. Now we talk about the antagonism. Antagonism is when one drug decreases or abolishes the action of another drug. It is known as drug. Types of antagonism: physical, chemical, physiological, and receptor antagonism. Physical antagonism. Physical antagonism is based on the physical property of the drug. We have already seen the physical drugs acting by physical property, that charcoal. Charcoal adds up the different alkaloids and prevents their absorption in case of drug poisoning. So that is the use of antagonism in the treatment purpose. Now the chemical antagonism. We have seen this also, the drugs acting by the chemical action. So here two drugs react chemically and form a inactive product. So the chelating agents used in drug poisoning, that is example is penicillamine, chelates the copper, right? So this is an example of chemical antagonism. Now physiological or functional antagonism. So here two drugs act on different set of receptors. But the important thing is they have opposite effect on the same physiological function. So if you see the example in the anaphylactic shock, usually the mediator releases histamine, which causes bronchoconstriction. And for the treatment of anaphylactic shock, we give adrenaline, right? So this adrenaline, though it does not act on the histaminergic receptor, it acts on the adrenergic receptor, but it causes bronchodilation. So the adrenaline and histamine, they act on the different set of receptors, but they have opposite effect on the bronchial smooth muscle, right? So this is an example of physiological, or we can say functional antagonism. Now, receptor antagonism. The one drug blocks the receptor action of the other. So the drug which blocks the action is antagonist, and where the action of the drug that is blocked is agonist. Here you can see on the receptor, the agonistic binding site is there. So the antagonist competes to bind with the catalytic site on the receptor and causes competitive antagonism. Competitive antagonism is of two types. Equilibrium type. In equilibrium type of competitive antagonism is can be overcome by increasing the concentration of agonist, and the log dose response curve of the agonist shows a rightward parallel shift in the presence of competitive antagonist. While in the non-equilibrium antagonism, the antagonist bind to the same site on the receptor as agonist, but the binding is irreversible, and the antagonist forms a strong covalent bond with the receptor. We can see this example of equilibrium type is acetylcholine and atropine, while in the non-equilibrium type, the example is adrenaline and phenoxyethamine. Here you can see this is the graph plotted of, that is log dose response curve of agonist. But when antagonist is given and in presence of antagonist, if we increase the concentration of agonist, there is a right parallel shift of the log dose response curve is seen. That is in equilibrium type of antagonism, or we can say the competitive antagonism. This can be overcome by increasing the concentration of agonist. Now, non-competitive antagonism. We all know that agonist binding site is there on the receptor. So in the non-competitive antagonism, the antagonist doesn't bind with the same site at which agonist binds, but it binds with the other site on the receptor, which is also known as allosteric site. So binding is different site on the receptor and prevents the receptor activation. So after binding on the receptor, the antagonist structurally modifies the receptor in such a way that the antagonist is not able to bind with the same receptor. If we see the example, that is GABA and picrotoxin. So here in this non-competitive antagonism, the antagonist bind at the allosteric site and it is irreversible type. Even though you increase the concentration of agonist, this antagonism is not reversible. So here in the non-competitive antagonism, when we plot the log dose response curve of agonist in presence of antagonist, even though we increase the concentration of agonist, there is no right parallel shift of the graph, log dose response curve, but it gradually flat. So difference between two, competitive antagonism, here binding is on the same receptor site, parallel shift of the log dose response curve on the right side, and maximum response can be attained. While in the non-competitive antagonism, antagonist bind on the different receptor site, there is the gradual flattening of the log dose response curve, and maximum response of agonist is suppressed. Here, these things we have already talked. Synergism is a combination of two drugs can result in increase in the response. So when action of one drug is facilitated or increased by the other drug, we can say they are synergistic to each other. Additive effects, this means the combined effect of two or more drugs is equal to the sum of their individual effects. The effect of drug A plus B is equal to effect of drug A plus effect of drug B. Example is aspirin plus paracetamol as analgesic. While superadditive, here the enhancement of action of one drug is by other. So the total effect of drug A plus B is more than the sum of two effects, that is effect of drug A plus effect of drug here. So the example is sulfamethoxazole plus trimethoprim, carbidopa plus levodopa, acetylcholine plus physostigmine. So this carbidopa, physostigmine, they inhibits the breakdown of levodopa and acetylcholine respectively and thus enhancing their effects. While sulfomethoxazole and trimethoprim, they causes sequential block in the folic acid synthesis and have superadditive effects. So that is all about pharmacodynamics and today's lecture. Thank you. Stay safe.